everyone. My name is Iselina Moseley. I am going to read a book to you today by David Shannon. It is called A Bad Case of Stripes. I particularly love this book because it has so many different messages that you can teach the kids that, just help with being nice to people, name calling. We don't, bully people. Also for accepting who you are and accepting the things that you like. So I hope you enjoyed this book, and now I'm going to go into teacher mode. So today the book that we're going to be reading is A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. So already in the front cover you can see that something's wrong. People don't have colorful stripes, right? Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress, looked in the mirror, and then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room, and she screamed too. "Oh, my heavens!" she cried. "You are completely covered with stripes!" This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Miss Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camilla answered. "But just look at me." "You get back in bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. It's kind of silly that, she's still worried about the stripes and what to wear with the stripes, but she doesn't even know why she has stripes. All she could worry about is what she wants to wear. That's a little silly, right? Here I would ask the kids, what are some of our fears on the first day of school? Is it meeting new friends? Is it your teacher? Is it just a new school in general? Different things like that, trying to get them to connect to their first day of school as well. I would pause. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary!" he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching?" "No," Camilla told him. "I felt fine." "Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Miss Cream, "I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me." And off he went. Even her tongue has stripes. Whew, that's intense. Get the first side. And then I'll leave it on the side. Alright. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crown and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal. But when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. All of these kids are either shocked or the little girl right there is smiling. I would be like, oh, what would you do, if somebody started having stripes? In the classroom, I would ask the kids this, what would we do? Should we scream? Should we run out of the classroom? What would we do if one of our friends have stripes? And then I would pause, asking for the kids to respond. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard!" and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon, everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on a TV. Got some polka dots, still got red, white, and blue, some camouflage, the checkerboard. All these kids are just laughing at her. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious." Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. I think it's a little silly that she still doesn't want lima beans in her own home. No one's going to see her eat lima beans. It's not like the parents are going to record her, So I would ask the kids, what is something that they're embarrassed of doing in front of their friends, or if they do something at home and they don't do in front of other people, what is it that they would like to share, or if they're comfortable sharing with that to kind of get them out of their comfort zone of thinking that they only have to do certain things at home and certain things at school. Well, yes, I see. Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. "I think I'd better bring in my specialists. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long, white coats. He introduced them to Mrs. Cream. "This is Dr. Grop, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young." Then the specialists went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed and tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. I remember going to the doctor when I was younger and having to get a whole bunch of blood testing or just getting a regular checkup, and everybody's pushing on you and taking your blood. It was uncomfortable. Well, it's not the mumps, concluded Dr. Grop. "Or the measles," said Dr. Sponge. "Definitely not chicken pox," put in Dr. Cricket. "Or sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialists. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. "Take one of each before bed," said Dr. Grop. Then they filed out the front door, followed by Dr. Bumble. So here, I would ask the kids, what do you think is going to happen with her taking all the pills, or not the pills, but the colored pills that the doctors gave her, the ointment didn't work that Dr. Bumble gave her before. So what are all these pills going to do that all the different specialists are giving her? It'd be nice to see what the kids can say about this. I know whenever I read this to the kids at work, they just started laughing whenever they saw that she turned into a pill the next day. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolored pill with her face on it. Here, I'll give the kids, time to laugh, because, it doesn't look a little silly. You don't see someone as a pill every day. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. It might be a virus, he announced. With authority, suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be a fungus, added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. We need to go over those numbers again, back at the lab, Dr. Gord explained. We'll call you when we know something. But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. At least they didn't give her like a pill or ointment or something like the other guys did. Her face just cracks me up, it being like one of the biggest, things that just stands out at you. So it's almost like you can tell that the whole people that are out here in this page are shocked. They don't know what's happening. So, by now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house, telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out in the front lawn. So here I would ask kids to see if they can point out anything in this picture that would, show us that, are people scared? Are people frightened? Are they interested in what's going on with Camilla? But I would also point out, can you see Camilla? Is there any way to, kind of predict how she's feeling at this point? I know right here, you can kind of see someone's face, but it's not really clear whose face it is. So I would give the kids time to reflect on that. Like, why are the people here from the news station? What are their feelings? Is anybody else here? How do we know they're even news people? I mean, besides, the actual reading where it says by now the TV news was there. I would ask them, what else do we see, or how do we know that these are news reporters, There's Camilla. Let's see if I can do this like this. The creams are swamped with all kinds of remedies, from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, and an old medicine guru, and even a veterinarian. I would ask the kids, what do veterinarians work on, or who do they work on? Hopefully the kids say animals, but hopefully they don't try to, say anything that, oh, now Camilla's an animal. But it'd be funny to see, like, what the kids actually think, like, some of these people do. If you give them, like, what does a psychologist do? Ask them the different terms of the people that are trying to help Camilla, and what do they do, in real life, kind of related to that. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance, until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long, furry tail. But nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. I wish you hadn't said that, Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was a dresser, and 2 paintings were her eyes. And the therapist screamed and ran from the house. What are we going to do? Cried Mrs. Creep. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She began the song. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." Here I would maybe would touch on this topic, but I would ask, what are grandmas for? Trying to relate this, like, who does this look like? And then I would relate it to my grandma. My grandma always has the cure for everything. If I'm sick, if I'm not feeling well, if I'm not happy, things like that. My grandma always has the cure. So I would ask them, who is this figure in their lives? Is it another adult? Is it a teacher? Is it a coach? Who is it? So I would give them time to talk about that real quick. Maybe just selecting like one or two kids, because everybody's going to want to talk about their grandma and grandpa and the coach and this teacher and that. And so I wouldn't want to touch on that, so much, or so long, I should say. She went to Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What we have here is a bad case of stripes. One of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. I would ask the kids, "What do you think this is?" "Here," she said. "These might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh, my, no," replied the kind old woman. "There's no such thing. There's just plain old lima beans." "I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big, heaping plateful of lima beans, more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh dear," the woman said sadly. "I guess I was wrong about you." She put the beans back in her bag and started to the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she had been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. "Wait," she screamed. "The truth is, I really love lima beans." "I thought so," the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. "Mmm," said Camilla. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured!" she shouted. "Yes," said the old woman. "I knew the real you was in there somewhere." She patted Camilla on the head, then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of stripes again. So I would connect, one, that she has the lima beans now that she's eating, and then two, I don't know if y'all can really see it, but she has a striped bow on her head. So I think that kind of reminds her of, what she went through. So at the end, I would ask the kids again, like, what are some things that we go through, that we try to overcome by, not listening to people whenever they say mean things to us, or, just trying to stay positive. And then also I would ask, because her bow, what is a token of, your past and how you've advanced to where you're at now? That question I might ask with an older group. With little kids, I would just, keep it kind of simple. Like, what do you think Or why do you think she's now eating lima beans? And how did it help her to become, healed or cured? Different things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this book, A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Thank you for listening.